December 2019. Some quick complaints, because we have infinity million complaints, I'm sure. Nothing has gotten better. We've all known that. Maybe some technology for us consumers have gotten better, but I've often said that Windows XP days were better than today. The internet was a days. Back then, there were all these people on YouTube, and some of them, I remember them. They were a mixed bag, as it always has been. Some people on YouTube were great, and other people were laughable, and some of them were boring. That really hasn't changed, except they're harder to find. Somebody said that in the time AIs have been learning how to sort things, algorithms for recommendations, what actually happens is the AI learned how to hide relevant things and promote paid things. That is incredibly easy for an AI to figure out. So once it finds something interesting that came from a person, because it would have been flagged as a person, it just hides it. And it's really hard to find that stuff. It's been hidden. In the past, I have looked really hard for personal human content, but I never found it again. One of them was a guy talking about candy he bought from a convenience store that had a cartoon booger janitor monster on it, and he suggested that the candy had demons in it or some evil spirits in the candy. And while general food products have their ingredient listing, not everything is listed. There are legal things like certain forms and derivatives of MSG don't have to be listed, or MSG can be listed as spices if it's not the standard form of MSG, things like that. Or if you do the math on Coca-Cola, it'll be listed as 170 kcal. But if you actually do the math with the grams of sugar listed, it comes out to over 200 calories per can, kcal per can. And see, they don't have to list things. They have this legal wiggle room that they can basically lie using anyway. And that was an interesting person, but his content I don't think he deleted it. I think it got buried forever. It's probably unlisted by YouTube itself. There would be no need for a flesh and blood admin to be involved. They could just get a computer to unlist it. So, and we've all noticed that, and that's why you gotta bring back web rings. And when it comes to general society, well, YouTube is now television. The surface web is now basically paid articles, paid advertising. It's all BuzzFeed and old news rags, basically. The internet has just become mainstream media, and real people content have been hidden. If a real person uses certain keywords, they get shadow banned. That's why you have to be careful with what you say. And real life is where it's at. It's always been that way. The internet is nothing but just the latest incarnation of telecommunications, and you just have to go outside and talk to people. But hey, you'll probably find somebody out there. They're probably going to tell you that they don't engage in the internet for good reason. So that's just how it is. 99% of people on the internet are completely fake. They are just special ed shills that sit in the basement away from sunlight, making a million alt accounts and pretending to be sock puppets for the agenda, and they get paid for it. But if you go outside, obviously the shills, their physical thing is hiding in a basement somewhere. So, I mean, you're going to see gatekeepers and bad people in real life, but you're going to find good people too. That's all I have to say about that one. December 2019. I'm just seeing more in the wild conversations about how rapidly things have declined. Usually, most people on the internet are going to start by talking about how things were in the 90s. That's our frame of reference. That's what we know. 90s kids, as they're called. I don't really consider myself that because, first of all, kids are inverted. But I kind of missed the 90s, not only that, but you would really have to be in a very rich and affluent area with a lot of imports and available technology to experience the mass media and mass imports and distribution of things of the 90s and 2000s. A lot of these staples of the 90s and 2000s, I have never seen them in real life because they were not available in my area. So yeah, there's this enormous bias towards people living in rich, affluent areas. And the fact that I'm American should speak volumes because Americans are perceived as wealthy and connected when no, not everybody is. Even to this day. I mean, here's just kind of a random thought about that sort of thing. Oh man, I lost my thought. It came and then it went. The world is biased towards the rich. I think I've already talked about that. Because in Satan's world, money is king. And bad people have the money. I had a few thoughts. I guess they're all bottlenecking right now. This happens to me a lot. I get something and then my brain goes blank. Okay, well, I'll just talk about them as they come back. So, a lot of consumer technology became available in the 80s and 90s, and that was a major game changer. But one thing you're probably going to know from any history that you've heard of or have seen for yourself is that there's a point where things go from okay to terrible or from bad going to worse. And anything that gets better is only going to be with technology and consumer goods. And not everybody has access to consumer goods. And what is really frequent in the past speeding decade, like the 2010s, or 2000s actually, late 2000s and 2010s, basically online services to work with new consumer technology would be available in a window of 4 years, and time was really going fast even by then. We just didn't notice it yet because slow boiling pot. But, now I never experienced this firsthand, but I remember when the Nintendo DS came out and Pokemon Nintendo DS games were a thing, there was online support, and it only lasted for 4 years, and then that service got dropped. I never experienced it, but I heard about it. So, 4 years is absolutely pitiful. Even back then it felt more like 1 year. How could you... First you'd spend who knows how long fiddling with the connection, and then you had this incredibly short window to use the service. That's no surprise. That's just the way the world works. That's how technology is, and computers and internet are incredibly overstated. Society... I think the media, I shouldn't say society, but them too. But I think that the media and advertisers are making a big deal. Media is nothing but advertising. It is 100% advertising, either to get you to buy a product or to have a certain belief in your mind. And so advertisers, I'm just going to call them that, are telling us that computers and internet are magic because they want us to see more ads. I'm pretty sure that these companies are a part of the reason why you need to apply online to get a job. You can't just walk in and ask for a job. Everything is online. I think advertisers are to blame for this. I can be as tin hat as I want. And without that being forced on us, most people would just see the internet as a waste of time and walk away. In real life, a lot of people actually do. Of course, the advertisers now run the internet, and they're going to have you believe that everybody and their goldfish has a smartphone. That is not true. They are common, yes, but I don't think most people have them. And companies, everything is planned obsolescence now, and computer technology is kept secret from ordinary people, and it's all compartmentalized, and there are monopolies over it, and they don't want real people to do real computer stuff or real internet stuff. We also get hidden by the system so that we can't find each other. And the internet is nothing but mainstream media. It is all television and major print publications, and that's it. It is no longer the Wild West. Everybody calls the early internet the Wild West. Those days are gone. And when it comes from things that are bad going to worse, the birth of the baby boomer generation is another time period when things went from bad to worse. Not that I was there, but boomers are infamously loathsome and very pro-corporate, generally speaking. I'm not talking about people born at the same time as baby boomers. Those people are very unfortunate to have that label thrown on them, but most boomers are bad and they're not real people. They came out of some freak lab. CIA pickle factory. And when advertising took over the internet, that was once again the end of a good thing. And now here we are, just doing stuff because we have nothing better to do. And you know how it is. Anyway, so 80s and 90s, consumer technology, a lot of home photos and home videos of everyday living people came out. What I mean was home media was produced. Home videos, home photos, that's home media. A journal is your own media that you produce. Drawings are media that you produce, etc. And sometimes people will post home media onto the internet and somebody else can find them. Some notable people on the internet have their childhood photos and childhood media that their families have produced out there for review. And it's very interesting because it gives you just another look into the life of another person from a bygone era. Just home photos of people playing video games or having little family get-togethers. And there have been conversations about looking at people's early home lives when they were children back in the 80s and 90s. And people would lament that they used to look like really nice little children before they became well-known internet-famous SJW freaks. Now another thing that has rapidly worsened is in the 80s and 90s there was the whistleblowing pedo scare stuff, boys beware, watch out for homos, watch out for pedos. And you'll notice that there's this trend of people blowing the whistle and telling you to beware of predators and smearing groups of people. And then there's like a backlash saying, hey, not all minor attracted people are bad, not all homosexuals are bad. And then there's kind of this fight, but it's all orchestrated. And the truth is, these people who are considered to be marginalized have actually been pulling the strings and running the show the whole entire time. And as for general society, there's been a decay. Now, all the nasty, unsavory micro dicks and butts stuff has been swept under the rug. It used to be kept secret behind closed doors and nobody would ever breathe a word about it. But you've probably heard stories about people getting drunk and cross-dressing and pretending to be the opposite gender and having a stage name in the privacy of their own home. You probably heard stories about that coming out in the 80s and 90s on a personal rumor level. And now it's just been more out in the open. I mean, look at Desmond is Amazing. Look at drag kids. Look at the exposure that young people are getting to open stuff that used to be kept secret. Drag used to be kept secret. Butt sex used to be kept secret. Now it's extremely open. I mean, it's always been in media. Look at old cartoons and look at all the butt jokes and the poking butts with phallic-looking object gags and Mickey Mouse shorts and Tom and Jerry and things like that. But now it's not just a thing you see in cartoons. You see it in real life. Now, when you look at something on a TV, your brain processes it as just something on a screen. It's not real. It's just a moving image on a screen, nothing more, nothing less. But when it's in real life, it's four-dimensional because it's there. It's not a computer game. It's there. You can touch it. You can feel it. You can hear it all around you. It's not confined to a screen and a pair of headphones anymore. It's beyond that. And there's been more of this rapid unveiling, I guess, because now what was once secret has come out into the open. And I also remember internet fights that were staged on various forums that myself and other impressionable young teenagers would go to, where there'd be the forum, everybody would be Blue Lodge, because screechy SJW Swire boys were actually running the forums, and then every now and then a Red Lodger from Russia, yeah, that's very specific, would come along, or a Red Lodge cross-dresser pretending to be Christian would come along and start bashing on gays and saying marriages for men and women, etc. Even though that person was also inverted, it was all staged. It was a psyop to test the waters and see how people would react. And they got what they wanted. Everybody said that the Christian posing person was bad, and what they're saying was bad. That is a reaction that the mods were looking for. Anyway, so there would be a fight like that, and I remember being between the ages of 14 and 16 reading about people on forums saying proudly that they were gay, they have adopted a daughter, which is probably actually a little boy, saying they would swear up and down they would never hurt the child, but we know that's a lie. And they would say we're 14-year-olds and younger, because there'd be young children that weren't allowed to make accounts yet, under the age of 13, reading about how these guys love butt sex. And yeah, that was coming out in the mid to late 2000s. I mean, it's always been around, even today, when everything is all about cross-dressing and gender fluidity. The controllers refuse to portray women as having sloped shoulders and big hips. They will not portray women in that way. Unless it's gonna... Okay, there's like the Butch Hartman art style, but that's like padding. Like, just draw a character with narrow legs, and then on the outside of the legs just draw these big fake-looking hips. Don't draw the femurs at an angle. Like, look at the way they're drawn. The femurs go straight down. They don't come at an angle. It's a cartoon, but they're very deliberate. Cartoons are like a celebration of this sort of thing. It's kind of strange because live action actors try to pass, but cartoon drawings celebrate their inability to pass. But yeah, anyway, the cartoon drawings would have like long necks and straight shoulders and long arms on the she/her characters. And the he/him characters would just be short, squishy, have big butts, short arms, sloping shoulders. You know, even today you will not ever see published accurate real portrayals of the men and women that God designed. Even today, when being trans and gender fluid and identifying as Apache attack helicopters, they will not allow real people depictions. A very egregious, grating example of how what you see in real life is not allowed to be reflected by the mass media is, for example, the Pixar film Coco, because I saw that, and it's about Mexicans, and, well, also Skulls and Bones, Day of the Dead, so, Mexicans and skeleton characters, ooh, Skulls and Bones. Now, if you just search Mexican people, Mexican couples, and you do not look for advertising stock photos, you look for real person media, you look for the photos that real people put on the internet, you're going to see women and martins and almost no castrati. Mexicans have mostly females. Very, 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 very few castrati compared to other nationalities. And so Coco is about a child from a humble Mexican family. And yet, what do you see? Nothing but castrati and martin characters. And that is extremely not reflective of real life. Other nationalities will have more castrati in their group, not Mexicans. So, in real life, even, among white Americans, black Americans, you're going to see mostly and martin couples. But on Coco, the movie, it's castrati and martins. There is not a single female character design to be seen. And the skeletons make that super obvious, the skeleton characters. It's so egregious, it is not reflective of real life, and that is why that movie sticks out like a sore thumb that you can point to and say, this is what's wrong with media. It does not reflect real life in any way. I know it's a cartoon, but just look at the character designs. They do not reflect reality at all whatsoever. It might as well just be a complete piece of abstract art with no representation of anything physical.